she was offered as payment for her sister's debt, until the Mafia boss said, "Marry me." An art curator's world shatters when her sister borrows $500,000 from the city's most dangerous crime family, then vanishes. Dragged to the Mafia compound in the dead of night, she faces the notorious Don, who now controls her fate. But instead of violence, he offers a contract. Become his wife to pay the debt. A business arrangement only. He needs a respectable American face for his empire. She needs to protect her family. What begins as forced proximity ignites an unexpected attraction. But as bullets fly and loyalties break, she discovers the most dangerous threat isn't the man she's falling for. It's the trusted advisor who's been betraying him for years. The same man who murdered the Don's father. When the truth explodes in blood and betrayal, will her heart become collateral damage in a war she never asked to join? Or will the woman brought in as payment become the one thing the Mafia boss can't afford to lose? The golden light of sunset streamed through the gallery's towering windows, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floors. Alessia Ricci stood before a newly installed piece, her discerning eye taking in the bold brushstrokes of the abstract painting. The quiet satisfaction of another successful showing hummed through her veins as she adjusted the small spotlight above the canvas. "Perfect," she murmured, stepping back to admire the complete wall arrangement. Each piece spoke to the others, creating a harmonious conversation of color and form. This was her domain, a world of beauty and order she had carefully cultivated over the past 5 years. The sharp buzz of her phone interrupted her reverie. Fishing it from her blazer pocket, she saw Sophia's name flash across the screen. Another missed call. Her younger sister had been trying to reach her all afternoon, but Alessia had been too occupied with the installation to answer. This time, Sophia had left a voicemail. Alessia pressed play, expecting another breathless update about her sister's latest fashion venture. "Alessia, I'm so sorry." Sophia's voice cracked, thick with tears. I messed up so bad." The familiar dramatic flair was gone, replaced by genuine terror that made Alicia's stomach clench. "The business? I borrowed money from the Morettis, $500,000. The phone nearly slipped from Alicia's suddenly numb fingers. The Moretti crime family. Even in the sophisticated circles of Manhattan's art world, that name carried weight, the kind that made people lower their voices and glance over their shoulders. "Everything's gone wrong. The investors pulled out, the line failed, and now..." A choked sob. "I have to disappear for a while. I'm so sorry for what I've done, what they might... Just please be careful. I love you." The message ended. Alessia's hands shook as she immediately dialed Sophia's number, straight to voicemail. Again, each attempt more desperate than the last. "Miss Ricci!" Her assistant's voice made her jump. "Should I start locking up?" "Yes, thank you." Alessia forced her voice to remain steady, professional. "I'll finish up here." She moved through her closing routine on autopilot, checking security systems, adjusting climate controls, taking one final walk through her carefully curated space. But her mind raced with scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. Sophia had always been impulsive, prone to grand schemes and bigger dreams, but this... The drive home was a blur of city lights and horns, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. She tried calling their father, but he didn't answer either. Unusual for him, especially at this hour. The first sign something was wrong was the slightly ajar door to her apartment. Alessia's heart thundered against her ribs as she pushed it open. The destruction inside stole her breath. Her neat, minimalist space had been ravaged, drawers yanked open, contents strewn across floors, couch cushions slashed, art prints torn from walls. Even her carefully organized bookshelf had been decimated, volumes scattered like fallen soldiers. A creak behind her. Before she could turn, a deep voice spoke. "Miss Ricci." 2 men filled her doorway, their expensive suits at odds with their predatory stances. The taller one smiled, but it never reached his cold eyes. "We need you to come with us." His tone was polite, almost bored, but his massive frame blocked any chance of escape. "Who?" "Moretti family business." The second man stepped forward, his movement fluid and dangerous. "No time to pack now." Her mind screamed to run, to fight, to do something, but her body understood the futility. These men were professionals, and she was just a gallery curator way out of her depth. They escorted her down to a waiting black SUV, their grips on her arms firm but not bruising. Professional, clinical, almost courteous in their menace. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows as they drove north. Alessia's thoughts whirled like autumn leaves in a storm. Where was Sophia? Their father? What had her sister's reckless ambition cost them all? The urban sprawl gradually gave way to manicured estates and old money mansions. After what felt like hours, they turned onto a private drive. Through the darkness, elaborate wrought iron gates loomed, bearing an ornate crest she recognized from news stories and whispered rumors. The Moretti family symbol. The gates swung open silently, admitting them to a world Alessia had only glimpsed in movies. Perfectly maintained gardens surrounded a mansion that managed to be both elegant and fortress-like. Security cameras tracked their movement. Armed men patrolled the grounds with military precision. This wasn't just wealth, it was power. The kind that operated above normal laws and consequences. The kind that could make people disappear. Alessia closed her eyes, forcing down the panic, threatening to overwhelm her. She was educated, capable, respected in her field. None of that mattered here. Her sister's debt had dragged her into a world where different rules applied. Rules written in blood and enforced with bullets. The SUV stopped before grand entry steps. Her door opened, the cool night air carrying the scent of expensive roses and freshly cut grass. Such beauty masking such danger, like her gallery, but twisted, a corruption of everything she valued. "This way, Miss Ricci." The taller man's hand returned to her elbow, guiding her up the steps. The massive wooden doors opened soundlessly, revealing a marble foyer that could have housed her entire gallery. Alessia lifted her chin, clinging to whatever dignity she could muster. She might be a prisoner, but she wouldn't act like one. Whatever game the Morettis were playing, whatever her sister had set in motion, she would face it with the same poise she brought to every challenge. But as the doors closed behind her with a quiet click, she couldn't stop the shiver that ran down her spine. In her world, art was meant to move people. Here, people were the art, pieces to be moved, sacrificed, or destroyed at the whim of invisible players. And she had just become the newest addition to their collection. The marble hallway echoed with their footsteps as Alessia was led deeper into the Moretti mansion. Crystal chandeliers cast dramatic shadows across Renaissance-style paintings and gleaming wood panels. Every detail screamed old money and power, from the hand-carved moldings to the antique Venetian mirrors. The study doors opened to reveal a scene straight from a Mafia film. Dark wood paneling lined the walls, and leather-bound books filled built-in shelves. A massive desk dominated the space, behind which sat Dante Moretti. He didn't rise when they entered. He didn't need to. His presence commanded the room. Raven hair swept back from a sharp jawline that could cut glass. His eyes were cold graphite, assessing her with predatory focus. His perfectly tailored black suit emphasized broad shoulders and a lean, dangerous frame. At 35, he radiated lethal control. A dozen men in expensive suits lined the walls, capos and underbosses, watching their new leader. The whispers about his violent rise to power after his father's murder were still fresh in everyone's minds. In 6 months, he'd eliminated rival families and consolidated the Moretti empire with ruthless efficiency. "Miss Ricci." His voice was deep, smooth as aged whiskey. "Your sister's poor financial decisions have become a family matter." Alessia's hands trembled, but she lifted her chin. "I'd like to see proof of this alleged debt." A slight smile touched Dante's mouth, though his eyes remained arctic. He gestured to a silver-haired man, Marco, his consigliere, who produced a thick folder. $500,000 plus interest. Dante slid documents across the desk. "Your sister used family heirlooms as partial collateral, quite valuable pieces, according to our assessors." Alessia's stomach dropped as she recognized Sophia's looping signature, their grandmother's jewelry, their father's wine collection, all listed as security against the loan. "I have connections in the art world," she said, proud her voice didn't shake. "My gallery's respected. I could work off the debt legitimately, perhaps help authenticate acquisitions, or she could entertain our business associates instead." Giovanni, a heavy-set lieutenant, leered from his corner. "Pretty thing like her would be popular at parties." The temperature in the room plummeted. Dante's gaze flicked to Giovanni, and the man physically recoiled. The look lasted only seconds, but the message was clear: cross me, and death would be a mercy. "Leave us," Dante ordered. "Marco stays." The room emptied quickly. Marco remained by the desk, his weathered face unreadable. He'd practically raised Dante after his mother's death, transitioning from soldier to trusted advisor over decades of loyalty. "I have a proposition." Dante stood, his movements fluid and controlled. "Marriage." Alessia blinked. "Excuse me?" "A business arrangement, nothing more. I need a wife with cultural sophistication and an impeccable reputation. someone who can help legitimize certain ventures and deflect federal attention. "You're insane!" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Dante's smile didn't reach his eyes. He picked up a remote, clicking through photos on a wall-mounted screen. Her gallery, her apartment building, her father tending his roses in Florida. "Your family's safety for your cooperation of fair trade." Alessia's knees weakened. The message was crystal clear. No one she loved was beyond his reach. "I have terms," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Dante raised an eyebrow, looking almost amused. "Do you?" "I keep my gallery. No physical intimacy unless I consent. And the debt decreases monthly." Marco shifted slightly, perhaps surprised by her boldness. Dante studied her for a long moment, his expression impossible to read. "Acceptable," he finally said. "With one addition, you'll live here, maintain appropriate appearances, and support my business interests publicly." A contract materialized, detailed and precise. As the grandfather clock struck midnight, Alicia signed away her freedom with trembling fingers. Marco witnessed the document, his pen scratching like a death sentence in the silence. She'd sold herself to the devil to protect her family. But looking at Dante's cold smile, she wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. The room felt airless, suffocating under the weight of what she'd done. Original artwork worth millions decorated the walls. Beauty masking violence, just like everything else in this world she'd been dragged into. A Caravaggio caught her eye, Judith beheading Holofernes. The biblical heroine's face was calm as she saved her people, through sacrifice. Alessia understood that expression now. Marco gathered the contracts with meticulous care, his movements deliberate and practiced. The silver-haired consigliere's face remained carefully neutral, but something flickered in his eyes when he looked at her. Pity, perhaps, or calculation. Dante's scrutiny never wavered. He watched her like a man cataloging weaknesses, mapping pressure points for future use. His perfectly controlled exterior revealed nothing of his thoughts, but the intensity of his focus made her skin prickle with awareness. The grandfather clock's steady ticking filled the silence, marking each moment of her descent into this new reality. Outside the study's windows, armed guards patrolled manicured gardens under security lights. The juxtaposition of elegant wealth and brutal force embodied everything about the world she'd just entered. Beautiful, dangerous, and impossible to escape. The silk whispered against Alessia's skin as the designer made final adjustments to her gown. 3 days in the Moretti mansion had done little to ease her anxiety, but she'd learned to hide it better. The dress was a masterpiece in burgundy and black, the Moretti colors, with delicate beading that caught the light like drops of blood. "Perfect," the designer murmured, stepping back. "You look exactly as Mr. Moretti specified." Of course he had specified. Dante controlled everything down to the last sequin. The styling team worked efficiently, creating loose waves in her dark hair and applying makeup that enhanced without overwhelming. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. This polished creature looked more like a mob princess than a gallery curator. A knock silenced the bustling activity. Dante filled the doorway, immaculate in a black tuxedo that emphasized his dangerous grace. The styling team vanished without a word. "Your sister had excellent taste in collateral," he said, opening a velvet box. Inside gleamed her grandmother's diamond and ruby parure, necklace, earrings, and bracelet that had been in her family for generations. Alessia's hands shook as she reached for them. "I didn't think I'd see these again." "They belong on you." His fingers brushed her neck as he fastened the necklace, lingering longer than necessary. "Consider it a gesture of goodwill." The weight of the diamonds felt like a collar. Downstairs, the ballroom sparkled with crystal and wealth. Alessia recognized faces from society magazines mingling with people whose mugshots she'd probably seen on the news. The contrast was jarring. "My brother, Luca." Dante introduced a younger, slightly less lethal version of himself. Luca's smile didn't quite reach his calculating eyes as he kissed her hand. "Welcome to the family," he said, his tone suggesting she hadn't earned that welcome yet. Gabriel, Dante's security chief, nodded curtly from his position by the door. His watchful gaze swept the room continuously, pausing briefly on 2 men whose rented tuxedos screamed federal agent. "Mother," Dante said softly, "meet my fiancé." Bianca Moretti was a striking woman in her 60s, wearing her silver hair and designer dress like armor. She assessed Alessia with cold precision. "So this is the gallery girl." Her smile was razor sharp. "How Convenient that you appeared just when Dante needed a respectable face for his business ventures. Mother? Dante's warning was velvet over steel. Of course, dear. Bianca patted his cheek. I'm sure she'll be perfectly adequate for your purposes. During dinner, Alessia watched Dante work the room from their table. He played his role flawlessly. The devoted fiancé, the gracious host, the powerful Don. A business associate's wife complimented Alessia's necklace, and Dante smoothly detailed its history as if he hadn't acquired it through extortion. His hand rested possessively on her knee under the table, a constant reminder of her captivity. When he leaned close to whisper endearments for their audience, his grip tightened painfully. Smile, Cara, he murmured against her ear. Everyone is watching. And they were. The federal agents poorly disguised as wealthy donors, the family soldiers positioned strategically around the room, the society wives assessing her worthiness, the rival family members measuring Dante's apparent weakness for a beautiful woman. After dinner, Dante became occupied with a group of Italian businessmen. Alessia saw her chance. She slipped away from the crowded ballroom, her heels clicking softly on marble floors as she headed for the gardens. The gates were visible in the distance, illuminated by security lights. Movement caught her eye, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. She froze behind a hedge, watching as a man in black tactical gear crept toward the house. Before she could process what she was seeing, another shadow materialized. Dante moved like liquid darkness. The assassin never stood a chance. There was a brief, brutal struggle, ending with a sharp crack as Dante snapped the man's neck with practiced efficiency. The body crumpled to the manicured grass. Alessia must have made a sound because Dante's head snapped up. His eyes were terrible in the darkness, empty of everything except violence. Then he saw her, and something else filled them. Something almost worse. He crossed the distance between them in long strides, gripping her arms. Taking a stroll, Cara? I needed air. Her voice shook. Of course. His smile was cruel. Nothing to do with the gates being in this direction? She couldn't answer. His hand slid down her arms, leaving trails of heat despite the evening chill. One settled at the small of her back, pressing her closer. You signed a contract, he reminded her softly. There is no running from me. He guided her back toward the house, his touch possessive. Alicia felt the heat of his hand through the silk of her dress, branding her. The dead man lay forgotten in the shadows, like all inconvenient things in Dante's world. The lights and music of the gala washed over them as they re-entered. Dante's mother watched their return with knowing eyes. Gabriel shifted slightly, noting the tension in his boss's shoulders. Luca raised an eyebrow in silent question. Dante's grip never wavered as he led her to the dance floor. To everyone else, they must have looked like the perfect couple, the powerful Don and his elegant fiancé, wrapped in wealth and romance. Only Alessia felt the steel beneath his touch, the warning in his embrace. She was trapped in his world now, wearing her family's jewels like shackles, dancing to music that sounded increasingly like a funeral march. The party sparkled on around them, champagne flowing as freely as the money that bought all this beauty. But Alessia had seen behind the glittering facade. She'd witnessed the violence that maintained this empire of wealth and power. And now she was part of it, bound by contract and fear to a man who could switch from killer to lover in the space of a heartbeat. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Alessia's suite, rousing her from a fitful sleep. The events of last night's gala, particularly the garden scene, had haunted her dreams. On her bedside table sat an ornate silver breakfast tray laden with fresh pastries, fruit, and coffee. A folded note in heavy cream cardstock bore Dante's precise handwriting. Business meetings all day. Gabriel will escort you to the gallery. Dee! At least she'd have some time to explore without his oppressive presence. Alessia dressed in a simple black sheath dress and heels, then ventured into the mansion's labyrinth of corridors. The place was a study in contradictions. Renaissance paintings hung near state-of-the-art security cameras, and antique Murano glass chandeliers illuminated fingerprint scanners at key doorways. She found herself drawn to soft Latin chanting echoing from the east wing. Following the sound led her to an intimate chapel, its walls adorned with breathtaking frescoes. Bianca Moretti knelt in prayer, her silver head bowed before an ancient crucifix. Here to play the devoted Catholic bride. Bianca's voice cut through the sacred silence without turning around. Save your act for my son. I was raised Catholic, Alessia replied quietly. This chapel is beautiful. My husband commissioned these frescoes. Bianca finally faced her, eyes hard as diamonds. Before they murdered him in our driveway, shot him 17 times while Dante watched from the window. She stepped closer. That's what this life really is, girl. Not galas and designer dresses. I never wanted this life, Alessia said. I'm here because your sister stole from us. Bianca's lip curled. And now you think you can save her by seducing my son. He needs a wife who understands our world, not some art dealer playing pretend. I'm not playing anything, Alessia shot back. I'm trying to protect my family just like you protect yours. Something flickered in Bianca's eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. But she merely crossed herself and swept past Alessia, leaving only the scent of expensive perfume and bitterness in her wake. Later, Gabriel drove Alessia to her gallery in a bulletproof Mercedes, his muscled presence a reminder that freedom was an illusion. She tried to focus on work, checking emails, reviewing upcoming exhibitions, but kept catching glimpses of him through her office window, prowling the perimeter like a well-dressed guard dog. Ms. Ricci. A woman in a sensible suit appeared in her doorway. I'm Agent Taylor with the FBI. May we speak privately? Before Alessia could respond, Gabriel materialized behind Taylor. Ms. Ricci is busy. It's fine, Alessia said quickly. Please, come in. Taylor waited until Gabriel retreated, though Alessia knew he wasn't far. We know about your arrangement with Dante Moretti. Marriage of convenience to a crime boss. That's quite a situation. I don't know what you mean. Alessia's hands trembled as she shuffled papers. We can help you, Taylor pressed. Protection, new identity, resources to find your sister. All we need is information about Moretti operations. My sister? Alessia's head snapped up. You know where she is. We might. Taylor slid her card across the desk. Think about it. You don't owe them loyalty. Gabriel chose that moment to return. Ms. Ricci has a meeting. Taylor smiled tightly. Consider my offer. She left, but her card burned in Alessia's desk drawer like a lit fuse. That evening, Alessia found herself across from Dante in his private dining room, crystal and candlelight creating deceptive warmth. He sipped wine, studying her over the rim of his glass. How was the gallery today? Fine. She pushed pasta around her plate. Quiet. And Agent Taylor's visit, was that fine too? Alessia's fork clattered. You had me followed. I had you protected, he corrected smoothly. Federal agents can be persistent. You should have told me immediately. Like you tell me everything? She met his gaze. Where's my sister Dante? Your sister, he set down his glass. Didn't just borrow money, she stole family heirlooms, irreplaceable pieces to secure her loan. Then she disappeared with additional pieces worth millions. You're lying. I never lie, Kara. It's inefficient. His eyes hardened. Sophia knew exactly what she was doing. The question is, did she do it alone? Later, unable to sleep, Alessia wandered the halls and found light spilling from Dante's study. She peered in to see him watching security feeds, not of rival families or criminal operations, but of neighborhood children playing safely in parks under Moretti protection. Another screen showed paperwork, anonymous donations to her gallery's youth art program. He must have sensed her presence because he turned, shadows playing across his sharp features. Something you need? She shook her head, unsettled by this glimpse of complexity in a man she wanted to see as simply evil. He rose and walked her back to her suite, his hand brushing hers as he bid her goodnight. The brief contact sent electricity racing up her arm, leaving her pressed against her closed door, breathing hard. How could the same hands that had killed so efficiently last night make her skin tingle with just a touch? How could a man who threatened her family also protect innocent children and support art education? The contradictions made her head spin. Or maybe that was just the lingering warmth of his skin against hers. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dante's home office as Alessia directed two art handlers positioning a massive canvas. The piece, a moody Caravaggio-inspired work featuring dramatic shadows and violent beauty, seemed fitting for a man like Dante Moretti. A little higher on the left, she instructed, watching the handlers adjust. Perfect! You have excellent taste, Dante's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, his dark suit impeccable as always. He moved into the room, studying the painting with genuine interest. You surprised me by purchasing the entire collection, Alessia admitted. Because criminals can't appreciate art? A slight smile played at his lips as he dismissed the handlers with a gesture. Because most collectors take weeks to decide. I know what I want when I see it. His eyes met hers briefly before returning to the artwork. The interplay of light and shadow here, it reminds me of Caravaggio's Judith beheading Holofernes. Alessia couldn't hide her surprise. You know Baroque art? My father believed education shouldn't be limited to business and combat. He stepped closer to the canvas. He took me to museums across Europe, taught me that beauty and violence often exist in the same frame. Before Alessia could respond, Luca burst into the office. Scusi, he said, nodding to Alessia before turning to his brother. The Vitales are moving, 3 of their crews spotted near the docks. Dante's expression hardened instantly. Get Gabriel, full surveillance, no engagement. As Luca left, Dante turned to Alessia. We'll continue this later. That afternoon, Alessia wandered the mansion's library, trying to distract herself from thoughts of Dante's unexpected depth. Voices from the adjacent study caught her attention. Can't keep her in the dark forever, Marco was saying. The girl needs to know what her sister really took. When I decide, Dante's voice was sharp. The Vitales are already watching her too closely. Alessia pushed open the door. What did my sister really take? The 2 men turned. Marco looked uncomfortable, but Dante's face revealed nothing. After a long moment, he dismissed his consigliere with a nod. Your sister didn't just steal money, Dante said once they were alone. She took a thumb drive containing sensitive information that could destroy everything my family has built. What kind of information? The kind that makes you a target. His jaw tightened. The Vitales are hunting Sofia too. The next morning, Alessia found herself sitting beside Dante in the ornate St. Anthony's Church. The congregation's reaction to him fascinated her. Young men averting their eyes in fear, while elderly women patted his cheek like a favored grandson. Dante? A weathered old woman grabbed his hand after Mass. You look too thin. Come for Sunday dinner like when you were a boy. His smile was genuinely warm. Grazie, Nonna Rosa, but business! Gunfire shattered the peaceful scene. Down! Dante tackled Alessia behind a car as bullets peppered the street. He covered her body with his own, drawing his weapon smoothly. The air filled with screams and the metallic tang of gunpowder. Gabriel and his men emerged from nowhere, returning fire at the Vitale attackers. Dante fired 3 precise shots, taking down a gunman trying to flank their position. Throughout the chaos, he never stopped shielding Alessia. Later, during an emergency meeting at the mansion, Alessia learned why. The Vitales think she knows where Sofia is hiding, Gabriel reported. They'll keep coming. Increase security at all properties, Dante ordered, wincing as his doctor cleaned a bullet graze on his arm. No one gets near her. After the others left, Alessia confronted him. You should have told me the truth from the beginning. I'm the one in danger. You think I don't know that? He stood, towering over her. You think I want you at risk? I think you want to control everything, including me. The thumb drive doesn't just contain financial records, he snapped. It has names, every informant, every ally, good people who trust us with their lives. If the Vitales get that information, it won't just be my empire that falls. It will be a bloodbath. His words hung heavy in the air between them. That night, Dante personally checked her suite's security. The panic button connects directly to my phone, he demonstrated, his hand brushing hers as he showed her the device beside her bed. The touch lingered, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. His eyes met hers, dark with an emotion that had nothing to do with business arrangements or family obligations. For a moment, Alessia thought he might close the distance between them. Instead, he stepped back, his expression carefully controlled once more. Buonanotte, cara. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Alessia alone with the realization that their carefully negotiated arrangement was becoming something far more complicated. The morning sun filtered through the gallery's windows as Alessia straightened a newly arrived sculpture. Despite the events of the past weeks, this space remained her sanctuary. Gabriel stood by the entrance, his watchful gaze scanning every corner of the room. I need to check the new shipment in the back, she said, moving toward the storage area. Gabriel nodded, following at a respectful distance. Dante wasn't happy about this visit. Dante isn't happy about most things, Alessia muttered, though she understood his concern after yesterday's shootout. The bell above the door chimed. 2 well-dressed men entered, looking appreciatively at the artwork. Something about their posture made Gabriel tense. We're actually closed for inventory, Alessia started to say. Everything happened in seconds. The first man lunged for her, while the second engaged Gabriel. The security chief moved with deadly efficiency, but the first man had already grabbed Alessia. pressing something cold against her ribs. "Your sister sends her regards," he whispered in her ear, his Italian accent thick. Gabriel's fist connected with the second man's jaw, dropping him instantly. In the same fluid motion, he drew his weapon and aimed it at Alessia's captor. "Let her go!" The standoff lasted only moments before the sound of approaching sirens sent the Vitale men fleeing. Gabriel immediately called for backup while checking Alessia for injuries. When they returned to the compound, Dante was waiting in the courtyard. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes blazed with fury. "Inside. Now." Alessia had never seen him so angry. He paced his study like a caged animal while she recounted what happened. "You're never leaving these grounds again," he declared. "They're getting bolder. Next time—" He stopped, his hands clenching into fists. "I can't live in a cage, Dante." "You can and you will." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "Pack your things, you're moving to my suite." "What? No!" It's the most secure location in the compound. The entire wing is bulletproof, with dedicated security and multiple escape routes. His tone left no room for argument. "I'm not losing you to the Vitales." An hour later, Alessia stood in Dante's massive bedroom, her few possessions looking lost among the masculine decor. Dark woods and deep blues dominated the space, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate's grounds. "The bathroom is through there," Dante indicated, carrying her last bag. "I'll take the office." "You don't have to sleep on your couch. I do." His voice was firm but not unkind. "You need to feel safe here." As evening fell, Alessia watched Dante move through his nightly routine. He spoke with Gabriel about security rotations, checked in with various family members, and reviewed surveillance feeds on his laptop. It was strange seeing him in this private setting, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, guard slightly lowered. Around 9, she heard his voice from the office, speaking Italian so softly it was almost tender. Curiosity drew her to the partially open door. Dante sat at his desk, phone pressed to his ear. "E poi il brutto anatroccolo diventò un bellissimo cigno," he read, clearly finishing a story. When he hung up, he noticed her watching. "My niece, Sophia, she's 6. You read to her every night?" "Since her mother died last year." He gestured for her to sit. "Luca tries, but business keeps him away often. She shouldn't lose both parents." Alessia settled into a leather chair, studying him. "You're different with her. Children deserve innocence. I never had that luxury." He was quiet for a moment. "My father wanted better for us. He had plans to legitimize everything, turn our interests purely legal within 5 years. What happened? The old guard didn't share his vision. They saw legitimate business as weak." His jaw tightened. "I was 17 when they killed him. Shot him at his desk, right where I'm sitting now." The weight of his words hung between them. Alessia saw him differently in that moment. Not just the ruthless crime boss, but a son carrying his father's unfulfilled dreams. "That's why you want to go legitimate," she realized. "You're finishing what he started." Dante's eyes met hers, surprised by her insight. "Most people assume I want more power, more territory. But you want freedom," she said softly. "From all of this." He didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation enough. Later that night, Alessia lay in Dante's enormous bed, hyper-aware of his presence in the next room. The mattress was sinfully comfortable, the sheets impossibly soft, but sleep eluded her. Her mind kept returning to the man on the other side of the wall, the brutal enforcer who read bedtime stories, the crime boss who wanted to go straight, the captor who made her feel inexplicably safe. She heard him shift on the couch, probably just as awake as she was. The proximity was intoxicating and terrifying. Everything she knew about right and wrong told her to fear him, to hate him for forcing her into this arrangement. Instead, she found herself drawn to the complexities beneath his controlled exterior. The night stretched on, filled with the quiet sounds of their shared insomnia, each acutely conscious of the other just feet away. Alessia stared at the wall separating them, wondering how a man she'd known for such a short time could challenge everything she thought she understood about good and evil, about herself. Alessia jolted awake to screams, raw, guttural sounds that made her blood run cold. She threw off the covers, heart pounding as she rushed to Dante's office. He thrashed on the leather couch, face contorted in anguish. "No! Papa! No!" "Dante," she called softly, keeping her distance. When he didn't wake, she stepped closer. "Dante, wake up!" His eyes snapped open, wild and unseeing. In one fluid motion, he grabbed her wrist and yanked her down. Alessia gasped as she landed against his chest, his arms locking around her like steel bands. "You're safe," she whispered, feeling his heart hammering. It was just a dream. Gradually, his breathing steadied. His grip loosened but didn't release her entirely. For a moment, he seemed to need her closeness, his face buried in her hair. Then awareness returned. He stiffened, walls slamming back into place as he carefully set her aside and stood. "Go back to bed," he said roughly, not meeting her eyes. Morning brought awkward silence as they shared breakfast in his sitting area. Alessia sipped coffee, watching Dante attack his emails with singular focus. The intimacy of the night hung between them, unacknowledged. A knock interrupted the tension. Marco entered, his usually composed face tight with concern. "The feds are sniffing around metropolitan shipping," he reported. "They're claiming irregularities in the manifests." Dante's jaw clenched. "They're trying to hit our legitimate businesses now." "I might know someone who could help," Alessia found herself saying. Both men turned to her. "James Cooper. He owns one of the largest private shipping companies on the East Coast. He's a regular at my gallery." "And why would he help us?" Marco asked skeptically. "Because I've helped him build his art collection for years. He trusts my judgment." Dante studied her for a long moment. "Make the call." Later that afternoon, Dante led Alessia to a hidden elevator. "You need to learn to protect yourself," he said as they descended. The doors opened to reveal an underground shooting range. Alessia's steps echoed as she followed him to a weapon-lined wall. "I've never touched a gun before," she admitted. "That changes today." He selected a small pistol and moved behind her. "Stance is critical. Feet shoulder-width apart." His hands positioned her hips, sending warmth through her body. He guided her arms up, his chest pressed against her back. "Breathe slowly," he murmured near her ear. "Focus on the target." Alessia tried to concentrate, but his proximity was overwhelming. His cologne filled her senses, his touch burning through her clothes. The moment shattered as Gabriel burst in. "Boss, we've got movement. The Vitales are mobilizing." Dante's warmth vanished as he stepped away. "Where?" "Multiple locations. Looks coordinated." "They're planning something," Dante growled. "Double the patrols. I want eyes on every Vitale property." Dinner that night was a tense affair. Bianca watched Alessia with suspicious eyes, while Luca detailed potential Vitale targets. Even Marco seemed on edge, his usual calm demeanor strained. Back in their suite, Alessia found Dante at the windows, staring into the darkness. "How do you do it?" she asked. "Trust anyone in this world?" "I don't." He turned to face her. "Trust gets people killed." "You trust Marco?" "Marco raised me after my father died. He's the exception." Alessia gathered her courage. "I need to tell you something. The FBI approached me again." She waited for anger, for accusations. Instead, Dante's expression showed only grim understanding. "I know," he said. "Agent Taylor's been watching you for weeks. Some of my associates wanted to handle the situation." The implications chilled her. "But you stopped them." "You're under my protection." He moved closer. "Which means I need to teach you how to handle them." "You're not angry?" "Angry would be counterproductive. The feds will keep coming. What matters is controlling what information they receive." He spent the next hour coaching her on exactly what to tell Agent Taylor. Just enough truth to seem cooperative, carefully selected details that would lead nowhere important. "Why are you helping me like this?" she asked when he finished. "Because you didn't run to them immediately. Because you told me the truth." His eyes held hers. "Because you stayed this morning when I needed someone to chase away the ghosts." The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to face. Alessia felt the shift in their dynamic, no longer simply captor and captive, but something far more complicated. "What happened in your nightmare?" she asked softly. Pain flickered across his face. "The night my father died. I found him. There was so much blood." He stopped, shoulders tense. "I was too late to save him." Without thinking, Alessia reached for his hand. Instead of pulling away, his fingers interlaced with hers. "You were 17, she reminded him. "It wasn't your fault." "I promised him I'd protect the family, take care of my mother, watch over Luca." His grip tightened. "Some days I'm not sure if I'm honoring his memory or betraying it." "By going legitimate." "By whatever means necessary to keep everyone safe." He looked down at their joined hands. "Even if it means making choices he wouldn't have approved of." The weight of his words settled around them, along with the unspoken acknowledgement that her presence in his life was one of those choices. She should have felt used, should have resented being a pawn in his games. Instead, she found herself understanding his impossible position, a man trying to protect his family's future while haunted by its past. 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Now, Alessia sat across from James Porter in the Moretti compound's formal sitting room, her heart racing beneath her composed exterior. The shipping magnate's silver hair and expensive suit spoke of old money and influence, exactly what Dante needed. "I must admit, I was surprised by your invitation, Alessia," James said, accepting a coffee cup. "Though pleased to hear you've found personal happiness." From his position by the window, Dante watched their interaction with predatory focus. Alessia could feel his presence like electricity in the air. "James, I know you've been looking to expand your Mediterranean routes," she said smoothly. "The Moretti Shipping Company has established infrastructure that could benefit both parties." For the next hour, she guided the conversation skillfully between art and business, watching James warm to the possibility of partnership. When Dante joined the discussion, she noticed how he followed her lead, allowing her to bridge their worlds. "Your fiancé has quite the business acumen," James commented to Dante. "You're a fortunate man." Dante's hand found the small of her back. "I'm well aware." By evening, contracts were signed, and the Moretti dining room filled with celebration. Gabriel raised his glass first. "To our newest partnership, and to Alessia, who made it happen." Luca's grin was genuine as he clinked glasses with her. "Welcome to the family, for real this time." Even Bianca's usual ice thawed slightly. "You did well today," she admitted quietly, as servers brought out dessert. "Perhaps you understand our world better than I thought." After dinner, Dante led Alessia down a spiral staircase. "I want to show you something." The wine cellar was a cathedral of bottles, temperature-controlled and perfectly organized. Dante moved with certainty to a specific rack, selecting a dust-covered bottle. "Brunello di Montalcino, 1955, he said softly. "My father's favorite. He saved this bottle for something truly special." Alessia watched him open it with reverence, noting how his hands, capable of such violence, handled the vintage with incredible care. "Tell me about your father's dreams," she said as he poured. "The legitimate future he wanted." Dante's eyes grew distant. He saw how this life destroys families, how it turns brothers against brothers, sons against fathers. He wanted more for us, real power, not just fear and violence. "Is that why you're pushing so hard to go legitimate?" "Part of it." He handed her a glass. "I've seen too many good men die for old vendettas, too many children left fatherless." The wine was extraordinary, complex with age. Like the man before her, Alessia thought. "You're already different from what they expect," she said. "The donations to my youth program, the way you protect the neighborhood." "I'm still a killer," his voice roughened. "Still the man who will do anything to protect what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone sent shivers through her. He stepped closer, and Alessia felt the wall at her back. "And am I yours?" she whispered. "Another possession." His hand cupped her cheek. "You know you're more than that." When his lips met hers, it was like lightning striking. His kiss was both passionate and controlled, demanding and giving. Alessia's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer as years of tension exploded between them. His fingers tangled in her hair as he deepened the kiss, pressing her against the wall. She gasped at the feeling of his body against hers, solid and powerful. Heat pooled low in her belly as his lips traced her jaw, her neck. Reality crashed back like ice water. This man had forced her into marriage, held her sister's debt over her head. No matter how much she wanted him, their beginning was rooted in coercion. Alessia pushed him away, breathing hard. We can't. "I know." His voice was rough. "But you should know what you're refusing. I'm still the monster they made me, Alessia. That won't change." She studied his face. The hardness, yes, but also the pain, the longing for something more. "Then why do you care so much about becoming something better?" He had no answer for her. Alone in her room that night, Alessia paced. Every logical part of her screamed to maintain distance, to remember how she came to be here. But her heart remembered his tenderness with his niece, his protection of the innocent, his drive to create something legitimate from this dark legacy. She thought of his kiss, passionate but respectful of her boundaries, the way he'd let her pull away without anger or force, how he'd shown her his vulnerable dreams of something better. Her feet carried her to his office before she could second-guess herself. He sat at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up as he reviewed documents. "Alessia," he began, rising. She crossed the room in quick steps, pulled his head down, and kissed him. This time, she was the one demanding, showing him exactly what she wanted. His response was immediate and overwhelming, arms wrapping around her as he returned her passion with equal force. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, his eyes searched hers. "Are you sure?" "No," she admitted. "But I'm choosing this, choosing you anyway." His forehead rested against hers. "I can't change what I am." "I'm not asking you to." She traced his jaw with gentle fingers. "I'm just asking you to let me see all of you. The monster and the man who wants to be more." His kiss was answer enough. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, warming Alessia's bare skin. She stretched languidly, memories of the previous night flooding back. Passionate kisses, gentle touches, Dante's surprising tenderness. The silk sheets felt luxurious against her body, but guilt crept in with consciousness. Had she really slept with the man who'd essentially blackmailed her into marriage? Her body hummed with satisfaction, even as her mind warred with itself. Every touch had been consensual, desired. But the circumstances that brought them together weren't. The door opened quietly, and Dante entered carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. He'd already dressed in a charcoal suit, but his usual rigid control seemed softer around the edges. His eyes traveled over her appreciatively. "Good morning," he said, voice still rough with sleep. He set 1 cup on her nightstand, a gesture so domestic it made her heart flutter. "Thank you." She sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. "You're dressed early." Force of habit. He perched on the bed's edge, watching her with unusual openness. "I don't usually." His phone buzzed violently. The softness vanished as he checked the message. "Get dressed," he ordered, already moving. "There's been an attack on our River Street warehouse." 20 minutes later, Alessia followed Dante into his study where his inner circle had gathered. She expected to be dismissed, but was surprised when he pulled out a chair beside him. "The Vitales hit us at 4 a.m., Gabriel reported, pointing to security footage. 3 of our men were injured, 1 critically." "Inventory?" Dante's voice was ice. "They weren't after product," Luca cut in. "This was a message." They spent an hour strategizing countermoves. Alessia observed Dante's tactical brilliance, the way his men respected both his intelligence and authority. When he asked her opinion on using her art connections to help launder emergency funds, she realized he truly valued her input. Later that afternoon, they visited Tommy Russo's family. The injured soldier lay in a private hospital room, his wife and children gathered close. Dante spoke quietly with each family member, ensuring they had everything they needed. "The family takes care of its own," he told Tommy's tearful wife, pressing an envelope into her hands. "Your children's education, your mortgage, it's all handled." In the car afterward, Alessia studied his profile. "You really care about them." "They risk their lives for me," he said simply. "Their loyalty deserves protection." At a stoplight, Dante's phone rang. As he answered it, Alessia spotted a cafe. "I'll grab us coffee while you take that." He nodded, distracted by the call. She was waiting for their drinks when Agent Taylor materialized beside her. "Quite a change, from hostage to lover," Taylor said quietly. Alessia's spine stiffened. "I have nothing to say to you." "We've located your sister." Taylor's words stopped her cold. "She's scared, Alessia. Says she has information that could bring down the Morettis. Information that could free you both." "I don't need freeing," Alessia replied, but uncertainty crept in. "Don't let Stockholm Syndrome cloud your judgment. We can protect you." Before Alessia could respond, she felt Dante's presence behind her. Taylor melted away as quickly as she'd appeared. Instead of the rage she expected, Dante simply asked, "What did she offer?" "Sophia," Alessia admitted. "They say they've found her." His jaw tightened. "Come with me. There's somewhere I need to show you." They drove to a modest house in the old Italian neighborhood. Inside, everything was preserved like a museum. Family photos, old furniture, well-worn cookbooks in the kitchen. "This was my childhood home," Dante said, moving through rooms heavy with memory. "We keep it maintained. Use it sometimes as a safe house." He stopped in the kitchen, staring at a spot near the refrigerator. "I found him here. My father. I was 17, coming home from baseball practice." Alessia's heart ached at the pain in his voice. "He wanted me to go to college, stay legitimate. Instead, I had to step up, take control. The family needed strength after his murder. His hands gripped the counter. I became exactly what he didn't want for me. Alessia touched his arm gently. You're also becoming what he did want, building legitimate businesses, protecting families, creating something lasting. He covered her, hand with his. This vulnerability, freely offered, felt more intimate than their physical connection. They returned to the compound close to midnight. Marco waited in Dante's study, his face grave. We've confirmed a Sofia sighting, he said without preamble. Security cameras caught her entering a known Vitali property 3 hours ago. She appears to be working with them willingly. The news hit Alessia like a physical blow. Dante's hand found her lower back, steadying her as her world tilted again. Thunder rolled across the Moretti compound as dawn broke, matching the storm brewing inside. Alessia paced Dante's study, her silk robe swishing against her legs. You can't just grab her off the street, she protested. Dante stood by the window, shoulders rigid. She's working with our enemies. Protocol is clear. She's my sister, Alessia's voice cracked. Something's wrong. The Sofia I know wouldn't. The Sofia you know stole from your family and put you in this position, he reminded her, though his tone softened, seeing her distress. Lightning illuminated his harsh features as he turned. I'll have Gabriel lead the extraction team. He'll be careful. Let me talk to her first, Alicia pleaded. If we find her, give me a chance to understand what's happening. Their argument was interrupted by Luca bursting in. The surveillance team lost her, but we got this. He pulled up security footage on Dante's laptop. Alessia's breath caught as she watched her sister enter an expensive restaurant, escorted by a distinguished-looking man in his 50s. Angelo Vitale himself, Dante growled. Alessia studied her sister's body language, the stiff posture, the way she kept glancing over her shoulder. Look at how she's acting. She's terrified. Or guilty, Luca suggested. No. Alessia moved closer to the screen. I know my sister. That's genuine fear. Dante watched her intently. You think she's being coerced? It would explain everything. The theft, her disappearance, working with the Vitales. The day deteriorated further when Marco arrived with news from their FBI sources. Federal arrests are being prepared. They have detailed information about our shipping operations. Things only an insider would know. Sofia doesn't have access to that level of detail, Dante said, rubbing his temples. Then we have another problem, Marco noted gravely. A mole. Rain lashed the windows as night fell. In their suite, Alessia found Dante brooding in the darkness. She approached slowly, placing a hand on his shoulder. He pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. The gesture was surprisingly vulnerable for such a powerful man. Talk to me, she whispered. My father always said trust was a luxury we couldn't afford. He murmured against her skin. I'm beginning to understand why. She turned in his arms, threading her fingers through his hair. Their kiss started gentle but quickly blazed into something more desperate. They made love with. The storm raging outside, finding solace in each other's touch. After, lying tangled in sheets, Dante traced patterns on her bare shoulder. I never expected this, he admitted quietly. You were supposed to be a strategic move, a respectable wife to help legitimize the business. Instead, you've become the first person I've truly trusted since my father died. His admission hung heavy in the darkness. Morning brought fresh complications. Security footage showed Sofia near the compound's outer walls the previous night, disappearing into the storm. She's getting bolder, Gabriel observed. Or more desperate, Alessia countered. Later, she convinced Gabriel to let her check the gallery one final time before its permanent closure. I need to make sure everything's properly stored. Some pieces are worth millions. Gabriel swept the gallery before letting her enter, then waited outside as agreed. Alessia was checking the storage room when movement caught her eye. Her heart nearly stopped as Sofia emerged from behind a large crate. Don't scream, Sofia pleaded, looking gaunt and terrified. Please, I had to see you. Do you have any idea what you've done? Alessia hissed. It's not what you think. Sofia glanced nervously at the door. Marco, Dante's consigliere. He's been working with the Vitales for years. He orchestrated everything. Alessia stared in disbelief. That's impossible. Marco practically raised Dante. He had Dante's father killed, Sofia insisted. He's been sabotaging attempts to legitimize the business. The thumb drive proves it all. That's why he used me to steal it. He knew you'd end up with Dante. Gabriel's voice called from outside. Everything okay in there? Alessia's mind raced. Fine, she called back. just cataloging some pieces. Turning back to Sophia, she whispered, "Why should I believe you?" "Because Marco's the one who told me exactly how to steal the drive. He's the one who connected me with the Vitales. And now he's going to get rid of me because I know too much." Tears streaked Sophia's face. "Please help me!" Gabriel knocked on the door. 5 minutes, Alessia." "Go," Alessia urged her sister. "I'll figure something out." After Sophia slipped away, Alessia returned to the compound with her mind churning. That evening, she found Dante in his study, reviewing security reports. "Can we talk about Marco?" she asked carefully. Dante's expression hardened slightly. "What about him? How long has he been your consigliere?" "Since my father's death." "Why? Has he ever—" she chose her words carefully. "Done anything to make you question his loyalty?" "Never." Dante's tone grew cold. "Marco's dedication to this family is absolute." The distance that suddenly stretched between them felt like a chasm, and Alessia realized she'd created the first real crack in their hard-won trust. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of their suite, but the warmth didn't reach the chill between them. Dante dressed in silence, his movements precise and controlled as he knotted his tie. Alessia watched him from the bed, the weight of last night's conversation hanging heavy between them. "I have meetings in the city," he said finally, his voice carefully neutral. "We'll discuss Marco when I return." Alessia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The door clicked shut behind him with quiet finality. She waited 30 minutes before making her move. The security detail Gabriel had assigned was good, but they didn't know all her tricks from years of managing the gallery. She slipped out through the service entrance during a shift change, her heart pounding. The abandoned Moretti property was a crumbling warehouse on the outskirts of town. Sophia emerged from behind a rusted shipping container, looking worse than before, dark circles under her eyes, clothes hanging loose on her frame. "Did anyone follow you?" Sophia asked, glancing nervously over Alessia's shoulder. "No, show me the drive." Sophia pulled it from her pocket with trembling hands. "Everything's here, financial records, communications, proof that Marco orchestrated Dad's kidnapping." "Dad's what?" Alessia's blood ran cold. "Here, you look dehydrated." Sophia offered her a bottle of water. "You're pale." Alessia took a long drink, grateful for the cool liquid. It wasn't until she noticed Sophia backing away that something felt wrong. The bottle slipped from her suddenly numb fingers. "I'm so sorry," Sophia's voice seemed to come from far away. "They have Dad. They'll kill him if I don't." Alessia's knees buckled. The last thing she saw was her sister's tear-stained face as darkness claimed her. She woke to cold water being splashed on her face. Her head pounded as she blinked away the droplets, finding herself bound to a metal chair in what appeared to be another warehouse. Angelo Vitale stood before her, his expensive suit incongruous with the grimy surroundings. "Finally awake, Miss Ricci?" His smile never reached his eyes. "We have a performance to film." "Where's my father?" Her voice was hoarse. "Safe for now." Angelo nodded to someone behind her. "Marco has been quite helpful in coordinating everything." A video camera appeared in her line of sight. "You're going to tell Dante you've discovered his operation is built on lies," Angelo instructed. "That you're leaving him for his own good." "I won't." The cold press of a gun barrel against her temple changed her mind. Meanwhile, back at the compound, Dante's return quickly descended into chaos. He found her suite empty, security in disarray. "How did she slip past you?" he demanded. Before anyone could answer, Marco burst in, tablet in hand. "You need to see this." The video showed Alessia, apparently unharmed but pale, speaking directly to camera. "I can't be part of this anymore, Dante. Your whole empire is built on betrayal and lies. I'm leaving. Don't try to find me." Something in her eyes caught his. Attention. A slight widening, a barely perceptible flicker to the left. Signals of duress they'd discussed during her security training. Before he could process this revelation, explosions rocked the compound. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions as Vitale soldiers breached the walls. Marco disappeared in the chaos as Dante took a bullet to the shoulder, barely making it to the garage with Gabriel and Luca. They sped away as the compound burned, taking refuge in one of Dante's oldest safe houses, a basement apartment beneath his childhood neighborhood pizzeria. As Gabriel treated his wound, Dante's mind raced through the implications of Marco's betrayal. In the Vitale warehouse, Alessia worked steadily at the rope, binding her right hand, using a technique she'd learned during Dante's self-defense lessons. The guards outside her door talked freely, thinking she was still heavily drugged. "Can't believe Marco kept his cover all these years," one said. playing devoted consigliere while working for us? Best part is, Dante never suspected Marco killed his old man, the other replied, even threw suspicion onto the Calabrese family to start that war. Alessia's fingers stilled. Marco had murdered Dante's father, the man who'd raised him after his mother's death. The depth of his betrayal was staggering. She redoubled her efforts on the rope, drawing blood as the rough fibers bit into her wrist. Each twist brought another centimeter of freedom, but she could hear more guards arriving outside. Time was running out. Through a grimy window, she could see the sun setting. Somewhere out there, Dante was either fighting for his life or already dead. The thought sent fresh determination coursing through her veins. She might have entered his world as a captive, but she would not remain one. The rope finally gave way, her right hand coming free. Now she just had to figure out how to escape a heavily guarded warehouse, find Dante, and somehow save her father, all while avoiding Marco, who'd proven himself more dangerous than anyone had suspected. Heavy footsteps approached her door. She quickly arranged the loose rope to appear still bound, letting her head loll forward as if unconscious. Whatever came next, she would be ready. Dawn crept over Brooklyn as Dante paced the threadbare safe house, his shoulder throbbing beneath fresh bandages. The apartment hadn't been used in years, a forgotten holdover from his father's time, its existence unknown even to Marco. Exposed pipes lined water-stained walls, and ancient radiators clanked in the silence. Gabriel sat at a scarred kitchen table, reviewing security footage on his laptop. "Boss, watch this again." He replayed the video of Alessia's supposed betrayal. "See how her eyes shift left? That's the duress signal you taught her." Dante leaned over Gabriel's shoulder, studying Alessia's face. Beyond the obvious distress, he caught the subtle tells they'd practiced during security training. The slight head tilt, the specific way she blinked. Luca emerged from the back room, phone in hand. "Our people spotted Sophia at JFK. She's trying to board a flight to Rome." "Bring her in," Dante ordered, quietly. Meanwhile, in the Vitale warehouse, Alessia tested her loosened restraints as Angelo circled her chair. Harsh fluorescent lights cast multiple shadows across his expensive Italian shoes. "You know, Marco came to us years ago," Angelo said conversationally. "Right after Dante's father started pushing to go legitimate, the old guard didn't appreciate that modernization attempt." Alessia kept her expression neutral, though her heart raced. So, Marco murdered his mentor. And then spent years ensuring Dante's legitimate ventures would fail? Angelo smiled coldly. Amazing what a trusted advisor can accomplish with selective counsel and strategic sabotage. When Angelo finally left her alone, Alessia worked her right hand free. Blood trickled down her wrist as she untied her other restraints. The guard outside her door looked bored, weapon loose in his grip. One swift strike to his throat dropped him silently. She grabbed his phone, sending a message to Dante's private number, a code they'd created during late-night conversations. "Art speaks truth when framed in light." Across town, Sophia broke quickly under questioning, mascara streaking her face. "They grabbed Dad 3 months ago," she sobbed. "Said they'd kill him if I didn't help them. The thumb drive was just bait." Dante's phone buzzed. Reading Alessia's message, relief flooded through him. She was alive, fighting, and still loyal. The relief vanished when Angelo's video call came through. The screen showed Alessia, blood trickling from a split lip, determination blazing in her eyes. "Surrender yourself tomorrow night," Angelo demanded, "or your woman dies screaming." After agreeing to the exchange, Dante turned to his brothers. "Tomorrow we end this, all of it." His voice carried the finality of a death sentence. The next evening, fog rolled off the East River as Dante approached the meeting point. Shipping containers created shadowy canyons in the abandoned yard. Gabriel stood visibly as backup, while dozens of loyal soldiers waited hidden among the containers. Marco emerged from the shadows, silver hair gleaming. "Finally, seeing you broken brings me such joy," he said. "Your father was the same before I killed him, so convinced his legitimate dreams were worth destroying our traditions." Dante raised his hands in apparent surrender. At his signal, his hidden men emerged, weapons ready. Chaos erupted as gunfire split the night. Angelo dragged Alessia away from the main fight, pressing a gun to her temple. Marco kept his weapon trained on Dante, years of bitterness pouring out. "I'll rebuild everything you and your father tried to destroy. The Moretti name will mean something again. Under Vitale control." Dante caught Alessia's eye, giving the subtle hand signal from their shooting. "Lessons." She dropped instantly as Dante drew his hidden weapon, putting a bullet through Marco's chest. Angelo's gun barked, Alessia threw herself forward, crying out as the bullet meant for Dante tore through her shoulder. Dante's return shot caught Angelo between the eyes. Racing to Alessia's side, Dante pressed his hands against her wound. "You took a bullet for me," he whispered in disbelief. Through pain-gritted teeth, she met his gaze. "I love you. Enough to die for you." Blood seeped between Dante's fingers as he held her, the chaos of the firefight fading around them. Gabriel was already calling their private medic, but Dante could focus only on Alessia's face, the woman who'd entered his life as a pawn and become his salvation, proving her loyalty in blood. Antiseptic scents and steady beeping filled the private hospital room. Alessia's eyes fluttered open, adjusting to soft morning light filtering through expensive curtains. Her shoulder throbbed dully beneath layers of bandages, but the pain felt distant through medication. She turned her head and found Dante slumped in a chair beside her bed, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. His black shirt was stiff with dried blood, her blood, and dark stubble shadowed his jaw. Even in sleep, one hand rested near his weapon, while the other stretched toward her bed, as if reaching for her even in unconsciousness. As if sensing her gaze, his eyes opened. For a moment, his carefully constructed walls crumbled completely, raw emotion flooding his face. "Alessia," he breathed, moving to sit on the edge of her bed. His hand trembled slightly as he touched her cheek. "You scared the hell out of me." "Sorry," she whispered hoarsely. "Didn't exactly plan on getting shot." His laugh was rough with relief. "Only you would apologize for saving my life." He helped her sip water through a straw, his touch gentler than she'd ever felt it. "My father? Sophia?" The question scratched her dry throat. "Your father is safe, recovering at our facility in Connecticut. The Vitalis roughed him up, but nothing permanent." Dante's jaw clenched. "Sophia's under house arrest at one of our properties upstate. Protected, but restricted until I'm certain we can trust her." "The Vitalis?" "Dismantled. I provided federal authorities with selective evidence, enough to destroy them without exposing our direct involvement. Marco's betrayal provided the perfect cover story." Throughout the day, a steady stream of visitors filtered through her room. Gabriel arrived first, standing awkwardly until Alessia beckoned him closer. "You were right about the video," he said gruffly. "Those signals you gave saved all our lives, probably. You're good for him. For all of us." Luca brought flowers and a tablet loaded with security footage of her father, proving he was indeed safe and recovering well. "Welcome to the family," he said simply. "For real this time." The biggest surprise came mid-afternoon when Bianca swept in carrying containers of homemade Italian food. She shooed away the nurse trying to enforce dietary restrictions with a formidable glare. "Hospital food is an insult to healing," she declared, setting up containers of pasta on Alicia's adjustable table. "You need proper nutrition to recover." As Alessia ate carefully, Bianca studied her with shrewd eyes. "I was wrong about you," she admitted finally. "It takes extraordinary strength to change a Moretti man's heart. Perhaps you are worthy of him after all." By evening, Dante returned from handling business matters and found Alessia restless. "Want some fresh air?" She nodded eagerly. He carefully helped her into a robe, mindful of her injured shoulder, then lifted her into a wheelchair, despite her protests that she could walk. The rooftop garden was beautiful. String lights twinkled overhead, and carefully tended plants created private seating areas. Dante settled her on a cushioned bench, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders before joining her. "I've been thinking about the future," he said quietly, his hand finding hers. "Marco's betrayal actually provides an opportunity. The old guard is gone or discredited. I can accelerate my father's vision. Legitimate businesses, legal power structures, influence that doesn't require violence to maintain." Alessia squeezed his hand. "But carefully this time?" "Yes, my father tried changing everything at once and paid with his life. I'll be more strategic, but I will complete what he started." His eyes met hers. "With you beside me, if you'll stay." 2 months passed in a blur of recovery and rehabilitation. Alessia's shoulder healed well, though the scar remained, a permanent reminder of choices made and loyalty proven. She stood in her gallery, now expanded and renovated, with Dante's backing, directing the installation of new pieces for the grand reopening. That evening, Dante drove them to his childhood home in the old neighborhood. The house had been completely transformed. The kitchen where his father died, now a warm, welcoming space filled with light and life. The living room walls showcased artwork Alessia had carefully selected, pieces that told stories of redemption and transformation. Dante led her to the couch, unusually nervous. He placed a folder in her lap containing multiple documents. The first was official forgiveness of Sophia's debt. The second transferred full ownership of the gallery to Alessia's name. The third was a marriage license. Kneeling before her, Dante produced a vintage ring box. Inside nestled an exquisite antique ring, his grandmother's, she realized with a catch in her throat. "You came to me as payment for a debt," he said softly. "But you became the price of my soul, and I'd pay it again and again." His hands were steady as he held the ring, but his voice carried rare vulnerability. "Stay with me, not because of a contract, but because you choose to." Golden Mediterranean sunlight spilled across the terrace of their centuries-old Sicilian villa, painting the stone walls in warm honey tones. Alessia leaned against the intricately carved railing, breathing in the salt-tinged air as fishing boats dotted the azure waters below. 6 months of marriage had transformed her world in ways she never could have imagined when she first stepped into Dante's study as a terrified captive. The villa had been a wedding gift from Dante, a surprise revealed after their intimate ceremony in Manhattan. The property had belonged to his grandmother, abandoned for decades until they restored it together. Now it served as their sanctuary, a place far removed from the complexities of their life in New York. Dante emerged from the villa carrying 2 glasses of sparkling water, his usual graceful menace softened by the casual linen shirt and bare feet. These private moments revealed a side of him few ever witnessed. Relaxed, unguarded, at peace. "The lawyer called," he said, handing her a glass. "The merger with Porter Shipping is complete. Everything's legitimate now, exactly as my father dreamed." Pride and old pain mingled in his voice. "The Moretti name will be known for business excellence, not fear." Alessia watched him over the rim of her glass, noting how the setting sun caught the silver, threading through his temples. Earned more from responsibility than age. He'd worked tirelessly these past months, dismantling criminal enterprises and rebuilding everything through legal channels. The transition hadn't been easy, but his iron will had prevailed. The gallery's youth program received another grant, she shared, moving closer to him. "We'll be able to expand into 3 more schools next semester." Her free hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach, a gesture that didn't escape Dante's sharp eyes. "You've barely touched your wine at dinner these past weeks," he observed carefully, his gaze intense. "And you've been tired, sleeping later than usual." Alessia smiled, setting down her glass. Trust Dante to notice every detail, catalog every change. "I was waiting for the right moment to tell you." She took his hand, pressing it against her still flat stomach. "We're having a baby." The glass slipped from Dante's fingers, shattering on the terrace stones. For once, his carefully maintained control cracked completely. Wonder, joy, and something like fear chased across his features as he stared at where their hands joined over their growing child. "A baby," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. He pulled her closer, pressing his forehead to hers. "I never thought, after everything, to have this with you." "Our child will have everything we didn't," Alessia assured him, understanding his unspoken fears. "Safety, stability, 2 parents who love them." Dante's hand trembled slightly against her stomach. "I swear to you both." His voice grew fierce with conviction. "Our child will know only the legitimate world, never the darkness I came from. They'll never have to make the choices I did, never have to carry the weight I've carried." Alessia wrapped her arms around him, feeling the familiar strength in his embrace, strength now dedicated to protection rather than violence, to building rather than destroying. "They'll know you as the man you've become, not the man circumstances forced you to be." They stood entwined as the sun sank lower, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The Mediterranean breeze carried the scent of lemon trees and salt air, along with distant church bells from the village below. Here, far from New York's shadows, they'd built something neither had believed possible when fate first threw them together. The gallery curator and the crime boss. The captive and her captor. Labels that had once defined them now felt like stories from another lifetime. They'd forged something stronger in the crucible of danger and betrayal. A love powerful enough to transform them both. Dante's phone buzzed, and Alessia felt him smile against her hair. "Luca," he explained, checking the message. "His daughter just took her first steps. He's been filming everything since we told him he'd be an uncle." "And Bianca? Have you told her about the baby?" "Not yet. I thought we could tell her together when she visits next week." His hand caressed her stomach again, protective and reverent. Though she's suspected for weeks, she keeps leaving fertility saints around the villa. Alessia laughed, remembering how Dante's formidable mother had evolved from suspicious hostility to fierce acceptance. Now Bianca treated Alessia like the daughter she'd never had, passing down family recipes and traditions with solemn ceremony. The last rays of sunlight gilded the water, fishing boats returning to harbor for the night. In the village below, lights began twinkling on, and the evening air filled with the sounds of families gathering for dinner. Their villa glowed warmly behind them, filled with art they'd chosen together, pieces that spoke of redemption, transformation, and hope. "I never thought I'd have this," Dante admitted softly, his arms tightening around her. "When my father died, I locked away any dream of a normal life. The family, the business, they became everything. I thought love was a weakness I couldn't afford. And now?" Alessia turned in his embrace to face him, reaching up to trace the strong line of his jaw. "Now I know it's the greatest strength I possess." He covered her hand with his, turning to kiss her palm. "You taught me that, Kara. When you stood beside me against Marco, when you took that bullet. You showed me that love doesn't make us weak. It makes us fight harder for what matters." The sun finally slipped below the horizon, leaving them bathed in soft twilight. Inside their villa, warm lights created intimate pools of radiance, illuminating the life they'd built together. Art and antiques, modern comforts, and historical touches all blending seamlessly, just as they had merged their two worlds into something new and beautiful. Dante led Alessia inside, his movements still holding that lethal grace, but now tempered with tenderness. In their bedroom, he pulled her close, one hand splayed protectively over their growing child while the other tangled in her hair. The former captive and her captor, now equals in love and purpose, had found redemption in the most unexpected place, with each other. Their future stretched before them, bright with possibility, as the Mediterranean stars began twinkling to life outside their window.